Good day, pTGC crew, crypto crew. Hope everybody's doing great today. Congratulations, John May, to the new son. There you are, John. Right on, guys. Let me get Twitter set up. That might take a second. Yeah, man. Start listening. This. Accept. Good morning.
What's up, Banana? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm going to just share this link real quick.
Sounds good. People are jumping in on YouTube and Twitter. Yay. I think we should have some stuff to talk about today, guys.
Did you say you have some stuff or you?
Well, I was thinking we should have some stuff with the with the SEC. I've got a tweet I'd like to read. And I've got some stats. I've got some stats from the sheets I've been building for months and months and months and months.
Nice. What do you want to start with?
Well, let's see. Let's start with blockchain stuff, since we're riding on the blockchain, and that would be Pulse. So let's talk about, I have a tweet that's in my bookmarks. I'll just pull it up and we can read it. Read it to my wife last night. She doesn't know anything what's going on. I give her little snippets, but I was like, honey, you got to hear this. So exciting. And anything you want to jump in and mention about the SEC thing is welcome. But let me just go ahead and read this. I'll show it for the audience on YouTube. Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm going to turn the heater off. Because when it runs, it kind of muffles the background. So this was from Nuclear Herbs. I recommend you guys follow him. And apparently he is in the know about, he knows about legal systems and I don't know that much about him. He just came recommended to me as somebody that would be a good source of information about the SEC case with Richard Hart. And he says, and this is a recap. He's recapping what happened on Thursday, October 31st. He says, Richard's team is stellar, as you can imagine. I think he has 18 some odd attorneys, and some of those are attorneys that Elon Musk has used. So Richard Hart is using the best that he can find. By the way, when I first found out that Richard Hart was being prosecuted by the SEC, I did a quick search. It's like a 97% failure rate if you go up against the SEC. You don't win against the SEC. So Richard Hart's team is stellar. The judge was very, all caps, prepared and asked a lot of pointed questions that she obviously needed direct answers to in order to make her decision. Richard's team, in general, gave more specific and definitive answers to the judge's questions. I assume that he means Richard's team gave more specific and definitive answers to the judge than the SEC. The SEC had trouble clearing the hurdle of proving domestic securities transactions. This is big. That alone could end this case. When the judge asks you, where does the blockchain live, and you can't answer, that's a problem. We not only packed the courtroom full but needed an overflow courtroom to hold everyone that showed up. That will definitely make an impression on the judge. Did I mention that Richard's team is gangster? Guys, these guys are good. Michael Liftick and David Kirk argued today. I'm just glad I never had to go up against people that good. Expect 60-ish days for a decision. Could be denied entirely, granted in part, or granted in full. I don't make predictions, but I do like how the hearing went. 60-ish days would be January-ish. I think they were asking for a dismissal, which could be denied, granted in part, or granted in full. Is that right, Hayden? Do you know if they were asking for a dismissal?
Yes, that was the purpose of the case.
Right.
Okay,
Cool.
jurisdiction.
Does anyone have any comments about that? The hearing? Was anybody there? If anybody was there, we'd love to have you come up and give us your feedback, your input about what happened.
I'll chime into with something that is like an observation of mine that I like to think about when thinking about the court case. So these guys that RH has hired, they have a very, very high success rate on cases they win. They're literally like the best in the business, and they want to win because if they don't win, obviously that makes their firm look worse, in my opinion. This is obviously just all my opinions that I'm speaking. And I do think that they review court cases and pick court cases that they believe they can win. Because large firms like this don't only do it for money, they do it for cases that they believe they can win and then make their firm look even better, making it so they can get more top tier clients, right? So that makes me feel really good that their success rate is high, that they're known for winning. They do have what I believe, I've never asked them this, but I believe checks that they kind of run through to, confirm that they believe they can win this case. And they probably wouldn't take it on completely if they didn't think they could.
Yeah, that's a really good point. No doubt they scrutinized the case heavily before they took it on, and they know exactly who they were going up against. And that's a good point. The sheer fact that they are willing to go out to bat against the SEC and is a testament to how well it could go. It's an indication to how well it can go. They're in it to win it, is my opinion about those gentlemen, the attorneys.
Yeah, definitely moving forward, if they can win this and they can and they can lock in stone what works for them for winning this, there's most likely going to be other cases that fall under categories like this, which there already has. And then they kind of got the war chest of what works, right? Just even like your human body, like once you get a germ and you find out how to fight that germ, once that germ comes back, your immune system knows how to fight it. And I believe it's kind of the same scenario.
Yep, agreed. Any other comments about the SEC? I guess we'll have to wait until maybe January, and stuff will come out. Stuff will come out in the next week or so. I think there are several streams that were done afterwards, and I haven't listened to any of them. I watched two guys on the street right afterwards. It was Axis and some other gentleman. I recognize them sort of, but that's all that I've seen in addition to that tweet. But I think stuff will come out. And honestly, I think the chain can be successful without a resolution.
Yeah, I think for me, the most telling piece, because RG was there, SJ was there, Maddie was there. And there was multiple spaces that were held afterwards. But the most intriguing piece is the thought processes of the actual judge. She was very on point, seemed to have been very, up to speed, if you will, on the actual proper questions, proper line of reasoning. When the prosecutors they're essentially saying that, okay, Richard promised to use the money for building the blockchain, and they were accusing him of, buying a diamond and buying this and that and the other thing. The judge literally came back around and said, the blockchain's built. The blockchain's been built. And in terms of him buying a diamond, why can't he buy whatever he wants with his own money? So the mindset of the judge is definitely not, right out of the gate negative toward Richard or toward what happened. But they, and that's a very positive thing, because the judge is looking at this stuff purely from so far a legal perspective. If Richard told you all the money was a sacrifice and you can't expect anything and it's not your money anymore, and he goes and buys a diamond, not only that, the chain's been delivered, then what's the problem? I mean, this is literally, if you were sitting in the courtroom, what you had been hearing. That is not something that, I think was expected, and I think that that's a very positive thing to consider in terms of how, in terms of to take in how the judge is processing the information.
Does anyone know the name of the judge? I'd kind of like to look her up. I'm interested in her age, honestly. If she's a boomer, it might be different than somebody that's like Generation X. Okay.
I think I saw a picture of her. I'm not 100% sure, but the picture, I think I recall seeing, she looked on the older end.
Okay.
More like a boomer.
Okay. I'd still like to know more about her.
But I didn't confirm that was a picture of her or anything like that.
Okay, sure. Yep. Okay. Well, anything more on Pulse Chain? SEC case, Pulse Chain? All right, let's go over some stats. So you guys all have access to this sheet. If you're in the Telegram, type in /spreadsheet. I renovated the pTGC rewards estimator where I put a lot of this data, where I get it, renovated it this week, and the UFO rewards estimator will be renovated. So let me show my screen for the people on YouTube. It looks a lot cleaner, and it's easier for me also to input the data. So from a user input perspective, it's much better right now. And you can literally put in how much pTGC you have liquid and staked, and it will show you the rewards based on a 1 million pTGC stake that I have running. I get the data and equate it to this information up here at the top. So, and every day I'm recording the Ethereum volume, Pulse chain volume, number of pTGC holders, the ratio, all this data, right? And I'm doing the same thing for UFO. So what I did is I created a new tab. It's called Data Reduced. It's in between these two rewards estimators. And we don't have a lot of months of data, but we're starting to get the data. And the data that we have is insightful. So you click on Data Reduced, and we have, in some cases, we have as far back as July. Like these spreadsheets are always growing. There's always a new idea. But we go as far back as July, and then most recently we closed out October. And I still have some work to do on UFO, but pTGC in here is done. So the Ethereum volume has been ticking up, and I'm not telling you guys anything that we didn't already know. Maybe this is good to emphasize for emphasis sake. Like in August, the volume was on Ethereum 18 million, September 28, October 33. I like to see that. The average obviously increased also, except for actually September, it pulled back a little bit, whatever. Pulse chain volume also increased from 300, let's see, Pulse chain total volume. This is a total volume, okay? Pulse chain total volume in August was 308 million, September 529, October 623. And then the average volume's been ticking up too. Like average volume was 10 million in August, 17 million in September, 21 million in October. And then we get into like our beloved little tokens here. The pTGC total volume has been basically ticking up with the exception of September was really hot. But if you compare October to August, July, we're over double. But then, okay, so October was 2 million, September 4 million. And then August and July were about 1 million in volume. And obviously the average volume per day would be similar. And then the ratios, we're moving up against WPLS for the last 3 months. And then you can see the average holding yield. And we only have 2 months of average APY. We have September and October, but APY for holding in September was 17%, October 8%, APY for staking in September 18%, in October 13%. So we're earning more for staking. Average pTGC tokens burned per day in September was, let's call that 15 million per day. In October, 11 million. And this section right here, it needs to be renovated a little bit. I need to fix the formulas. And we are almost done. Yeah, we're almost done. Average holders added in September per day. In September is 23. In October, it was 27. Now, the first year daily average holder adds was 23. So for the first year, we averaged 23 holders per day. And that includes all the airdrops, the initial pump, all that. The whole year, we averaged 23 per day. And in October, we averaged 27. That's it for the data, guys. I mean, I've got average pulse, average volume and transactions for PHEX Inc. and all the major pairs, but I only have 1 month of data. So it's really not, there's nothing to compare it to. Oh,
so if you took a mean just guesstimate on the daily burns, you said, I think 15 for September and 11 for this month. Are we looking at like around 13 million a day?
give me a second and I will find out. Divided by 2, 13.
Yep. That's almost a dolphin position being burned by automatic buying burns every 2 days.
I love that. I love that. My goal is to have a dolphin position. It's very attainable in many projects. And my goal is being burned every day.
Well, that would be almost 15 dolphin positions per month being burned right now.
Okay.
Which is phenomenal considering the fact that the volume is so low.
15 dolphin positions is 1.5 sharks. I do have data for UFO. Not as much, but let's go over that real quick. The volume has been kicking up, just like with pTGC. July was 900,000 per total. August was 800,000. September 1.6 million. October 1.4 million. And we have the average yield in PLS per 1 million UFO and the average holding yield. And let's see. And we have the average APY, which I think I need to double check to make sure that's correct. I'm going from memory, and I'm not trusting my memory to tell you guys what the average APY is.
All right, what was the average APY for pTGC again?
1 second. For holding or staking?
Well, for staking.
Okay.
Because, what I'd like is I'd like it combined, because anyone paying attention is staking, right?
Yes, I will do that. That'll be a metric. Yep. Okay, so the combined would be for staking. Let's see. No, for holding a staking, the combined would be 22%. For October. For September, it would be 35 plus.
And did you have an average daily volume for October?
Yep. Average daily volume for October was $69,000.
All right, so it's basically 2.1 million in volume.
Yep, exactly, 2.1 million.
At 22%.
Yes. Does that make you happy? Does it make you a happy holder?
Well, then you want to comment on the numbers on that? If you've got October at 2.1 million at 22% APY.
Yeah. So how I look at that is obviously 22% APY, in my opinion, is really good because the APY is all ethically distributed, because there is only a payout of APY with an actual value coming into the system. So that APY will never be paid out if there isn't an actual buy on the chart paying out that APY. So that APY is landing in your wallet by actual value coming into the system. And that value is double backed by more PLS going into LP and buy and burn. So that's what I think is really unique about our system, is the APY that's paid out is actually backed. And 22% is not a bad APY that's actually backed. But the question is, with the success of the chain, if we could remain at the 22%, and let's say, for an example, I literally just had a tweet or a thing in our TG that I posted, and I'll, I guess, relate it to this real quick. If no one's in our TG, feel free to jump in there. A lot of us kind of chat in there all the time. But what I was talking about was, and I'll start with pTGC for an example. If Pulse Chain does a 25x and we do a 4x against Pulse Chain, and this could be in 6 months or 4 years, like who knows when, but I think everyone believes Pulse Chain could do roughly a 25x this cycle. So just for example purposes, if we could do a 4x against Pulse Chain, I just want to show how realistic that is. We already did a 4x against Pulse Chain in the last couple of months, and Pulse Chain didn't do anything. So I find this to be easier when pulse chain starts moving, because last time pulse chain did a 4x, we did a 10x against it, which made a 40x. So these are all pretty modest numbers in my opinion, but for my example purposes, if pulse chain did a 25x and we did a 4x, that would be 100x. And our liquidity at that point would roughly 50x. So we would have $150 million in liquidity. And you would be up 100x on your position. If we can remain at 22%, just do the math for your own portfolio. Let's say you have a $10,000 portfolio currently and you 100x it. Well, then that would be $1 million portfolio, correct? If we could remain the APY at 22%, you would be making $220,000 a year in APY that's actually backed by real value entering the system when that APY gets paid out. And that's what I find really important. So you could literally just keep your store of value and exit your APY on a monthly, bi-monthly, weekly, whatever you decide to do to pay bills, to better your family's life, to go on a vacation, to, you know, to restake it. You can do anything. But the point of it is with this system being successful on this chain, you will be getting paid, or you could be getting paid a decent APY on a portfolio that can do many X's. And it's all backed by real value when that APY is paid out. So that's what I find most important, because most APY that's paid out is actually not backed by real value. It's either just paid out via inflation or given in a supplementary token that doesn't have value backing it. So there's like lack of liquidity there, and there isn't an actual purchase that's pushing out that token when it is. So what's unique about our system is the APY is actually backed by real value, not only once, but technically times two, because our system is made to back that APY.
Can you just and Fred, I don't mean to cut anything off, but can you go a little bit more in depth in terms of this one topic for the people who are showing up? Give them a little gold nugget. This is the gold nugget. When we talk about the concept that you and I were speaking about the other day, Zen, about the fact that people are actually paying for the APY. So it's kind of like a doubling effect.
People or bots, yes.
Correct.
It doesn't matter which one.
Well, right. Just in general, that kind of concept that we went over the other day. Can you just go over that one more time?
Yeah. So what's unique about our system is that the APY is only paid out when transactions are happening in our ecosystem. And this is either by a human or a bot. If there was no transactions, no APY would be paid out. This is a fee on transaction based token 101. But what's unique about our system is our web, to where the transactions never stop. But when that APY or those reflections land in your wallet, you ask yourself, how did these land in my wallet? Well, they landed in your wallet by a transaction. So that was either by a bot or by a human buying pTGC or UFO. And when they made that purchase, they injected value into the system, and a portion of that injected value lands in your wallet because of the fee system. 5% of that buy gets pulled away from them and gets spread out to a couple different things. Some of it's landing in your wallet, some of it's landing in your community's wallet, some of it's landing in the DAO, some of it's getting bought and burnt, and some of it's going to LP. This is happening with every single transaction, but it only happens within a transaction. And the same goes for when someone decides to take profit, or a bot does the buy and then the sell, that value was getting extracted from the system already. But instead of it being extracted instantly, it now got transferred over to the strong community's hand, the believers, via reflections and rewards, and it landed in their wallet. And now it's delayed a little bit. That could be delayed by a week. That could be delayed by ever if those people decide to never sell those tokens again. So those reflections actually have real value attached to them that only got paid out by economic energy entering the system. The interesting part about that people never think about is there's that value attached to it, but then with every single one of these transactions, there's not only the value that's attached to the token itself, but there's also the equal or more value, the 3% of the 5% that's going to LP ads, to buy and burns. And that's like almost double backing the APY that's being paid out, because if those users even sell that real value, they're now tapping into an additional amount of value that is bolstering up the LP and the price of the protocol, making it so by people taking profits off of their APY, it actually doesn't ever hurt the chart. The only thing that does hurt the chart is obviously big buys and big sells that are from like initial purchases and stuff like that. But if people see value in the system, obviously people have. That's why our chart is up and to the right. If our chart wasn't up and to the right, it wouldn't be, or if people didn't see value, our chart wouldn't be up and to the right. So people are seeing this system and believing in it is what I see. And it's really important to notice that the people believe in the system, I think, because of these strategic moves that we did with the APY payout, because then you can sit comfortably knowing, okay, my other fellow community members are also following this system, how it was designed. We're all educating each other, and we're not hurting each other. We're not fighting each other for the buck. We know by just, utilizing this APY, we're not only helping ourselves, but we're helping the system grow. Because while the money sits in the liquidity pools, like as our users and as our community sit here, our money is getting to work for us. In a normal token, your money is never put to work for you because it's just sitting in one liquidity pool and people buy and sell out. But with this unique system, all that money is actually working for us. So by us remaining in the system, it's actually paying us all more APY. We're like working as a community towards a goal. But then that goal pays us back with every transaction. It's very symbiotic.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Barry, you got anything?
So I'm a bit of a data head, but I'm not great with the math. But what I'm assuming is that once the market starts heating up, this APY is going to increase, the combined APY, and we're already at, for the month of October, 22%. Am I wrong on that?
The equation necessarily doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Barry, just to be transparent with everyone, it's really just dependent on the volume, right?
Right.
Yeah, so if the volume kicks off, obviously that's going to pay us more APY. That's the goal. More volume equals more APY.
Okay.
But I get what you're saying, and there is an equation to that, because we have to also take into consideration that, price is going up and so on and so forth. So you're going to get less tokens distributed. So that's why I like to look at if we can keep the 20% APY going and we can do 100x, we've now just increased everyone's, money working for them. Let's say $10,000. We just turned $10,000 into $1 million for our community. And now they're making that 20% APY off of $1 million. That's $200,000 a year in passive income, APY. You're not going to find anything else really out there that you can make the X's and make a decent APY. They're never really combined. And if they are combined, they're usually really risky. And what we found with the system is with the buy and burns and the LP ads and with the reason to store your value in the system, it becomes less risky, right? Especially the facts that we're here doing these numbers at the bottom of pulse chain. That's the thing I love to see is like the system is working at the bottom of pulse chain. What happens when pulse chain leaves the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
The system's going to run better.
So just looking at September and October comparing, pTGC's total volume in September was 4 million. Combined APY was 36%. In October, it was 2 million. Combined APY 22%. So there is a correlation to volume and APY, clearly. And
well, absolutely, because you're only earning the APY per transaction. If there's no volume, there's no APY.
Yes, there you go. Okay, I'm excited to see more volume. I'm excited to pair to other blue chip tokens and make more volume.
There was a $40,000 elk ad this morning with Hex. That's a massive LP ad in one shot, by the way.
Yes, saw that on Twitter. And I'm pulling it up right now.
I mean, you got...
While you're pulling that up.
Go ahead.
If what you're saying is on that topic, you should go.
You're breaking up.
Mando, what I was saying is if what you're about to say is on that LP ad topic, you should go first since we're on that topic.
Nope, we'd rather listen to you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So what I was going to finish was this comment that was in our TG where we're talking about, a 4X on pulse chain, 25X. And what I was the main thing that was talking about is with that simple equation of pulse chain just doing a 25X, where does that actually put us in the crypto market? And with UFO, that would put our LP web at $300 million working for us, working for our community every single day. Even in normal crypto, they don't have $300 million in liquidity for one. And even if they did, it wouldn't be working for them. And that's what's super unique about our system. $300 million in liquidity is no joke. That's with UFO. With pTGC, if Pulse Chain did a 25X and we did a 4X on top of it, we would have $150 million in liquidity. And again, that's value working for our community every single day. That liquidity is what's paying that APY, and that APY is backed by real value. There isn't protocols out there currently that I know of that have that kind of liquidity for one, and on top of that, that kind of liquidity working for us. That also, as far as market cap, which I do understand that market cap is kind of like a fugazi number that anyone can manipulate, but some ranking sites do use market cap like CoinMarketCap. That would put UFO pretty much in the top 100 of all tokens, and that would put pTGC in the top 50 of all tokens that exist. So I do think it's important for people to understand that mathematically, we know how to get to the top of the top. And we do have the plan to do so. And that doesn't only mean in liquidity. That means in market cap. That means in price appreciation. Like, we're trying to hit all these metrics. And we have the plan to do so. And it's not like a performing task. It's just written in the code, which is beautiful, right? It's written in the code. It's built into the LP web that's currently there upon design. And we can see that goal in front of us. It just needs a slight tick up of pulse chain. And every X we can do in the meantime just gets us there faster.
Yeah, and by the way, with the topic of liquidity and LP, if people have questions on that subject, because in crypto, it seems like that's the number one thing that people want to attack, that people want to speak about. Obviously, people want to just really get into that topic because that's where the money actually is. It's important for people to understand what it is, how it works, why it works for each system. And if you have, individuals speaking on topics, it's important you get the correct information. So, when you've got Xenon or individuals that understand it, please step up to the mic and get your questions and your concerns answered. Because not everybody, frankly, is qualified to talk about them, and not everybody is supposed to be talking about them. You shouldn't be getting your answers from just anybody.
Yeah.
So now's the time for that kind of stuff as well.
That's a fair point. I mean, if you got a burning question, bring it up. Bring it up, and some things I think are valid for being talked about in public. Perhaps some things are not. But
well,
I mean,
the point in saying that, Prairie, is for me personally. I'll speak to our community personally, like my peers.
mm-hmm.
pTGC is not afraid to speak about liquidity. There is nothing to hide. There's no reason to not. Anybody can step up to the mic. Anybody can step up to the plate and ask very nominal, small questions to the most difficult questions. And you're not going to get some, like what you normally get, some fugazi answer or somebody sidestepping or tiptoeing around something. There's nothing here that is not in the light, transparent, out in the open, and has been that way from the very beginning. And frankly, people that try to make comparisons or things like that, a lot of the time there's a lot of BS information, hypocrisy, and we want our community to feel like they're armed and aware, and that they can ask those questions and not be afraid to ask those questions. The community is not afraid to answer liquidity questions. It's one of the things that Cryptographics really liked when he came, was that's what we talk about. As a matter of fact, that's what Zen has talked about from day one, copiously.
That's a good segue for my question. Can I go?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And you guys have helped me. I've asked a couple of liquidity questions in the past. I'm trying to get a good mental picture. So there's a bunch of locked liquidity, which is going to be fantastic as things grow. How much does that slow down growth? People talk about, Bitcoin, you can't move Bitcoin without billions upon billions of dollars because it's so heavy, because there's so much liquidity. What does it look like on the roadmap as prices go up, liquidity's thickened? Does that just naturally diminish the gains because that's reality, or is this somehow different?
Zen, do you want to tackle this one first?
Yeah. So as far as gains go and how we're planning on doing that, or how our system's planning on doing it, I'm going to go back to the numbers I was just running. For an example, a 4x against Pulse Chain and then a 25x of Pulse Chain. That would equal a 100x for pTGC or UFO currently. Currently, what's the dollar amount to make that happen on the pTGC side? So if we have $3 million in liquidity with pTGC, it would take $1.5 million to 4x. So currently, for us to do a 4x against Pulse Chain, it would take $1.5 million. And then Pulse Chain would just need to do a 25x, which I think people believe it could do. That's 100x for pTGC holders. And that would be roughly, this isn't exact numbers, a 50x in liquidity, which would then obviously put the liquidity at $150 million.
So do you understand what he just said, sir, regarding the X multiplier? Do you understand that concept and how that would work?
Yeah, I understand that liquidity is going to grow and be quite large. So then let's say we've done that 100x and now we're all excited and we're hoping that.
I think we lost you.
Yeah, I was going to say I lost.
Oh, so sorry. Can you hear me?
I
Yeah,
do
please
hear
start
you
the
now.
question over again. Please,
Yeah,
please
so-
restate it.
So sorry. Yeah. So that makes sense that I understand that the liquidity is going to grow with that multiplier. So my question is forward thinking. Now,
You're cutting out again, sir.
oh my gosh, I don't know why my mic's going off. I'm so sorry. So I do understand the concept. Now we've gone a bunch of X's. There's a bunch more liquidity. Does that now hamper our ability for future X's just based on the that it's
Zen,
heavier to move?
Okay, so you can mute out because you're kind of farting in and out, but we've got the question. So Zen, if you want to tackle that one.
Yeah, I think one thing that really sets us up differently than other tokens, for an example, and why I'm not as scared to keep adding liquidity, it's two reasons. One, we have such a benefit of being built here at the bottom of Pulse Chain and doing these X's at the bottom of Pulse Chain that X multiplier scenario sets us up in such a different place than, in my opinion, every other token that exists on other blockchains. Because, for an example, Ethereum's done like 1,000x. Pulse Chain has done pretty much 0 X's. From the bottom, it's done like a 2x, right? So the X multiplier going into the future, if Pulse Chain is successful, the honest truth is X's will not be a problem because it will X our system, and then anything we can do on top of that is a multiplier to that system. So I don't really feel that we're going to have an issue of doing X's, because then once the blockchain does X's with us, it's going to multiply our liquidity. And what you're scared of is obviously our liquidity will get so large that we'll have to move more money into the system to do X's. But what that tells me is we have a legitimate project with real value for the system and for its community. If you want to shrink the liquidity to do X's, there isn't actually all that value there for the ecosystem. There's just enough value there for 1 or 2 guys. And when our system has that much liquidity, like let's say 150 million, this is obviously us beating out like pretty much most tokens besides the main dogs, that value will actually be working for us in buying and burning our supply every single day. So let's say a 50x from here, and let's say we're doing 50x, 100K in volume. Well, that would be 5 million a day. I believe my math's right. Hold on, no. Doing it on the fly. I think 2.5 million in volume. So let's say we're doing $2.5 million. Well, a portion of that volume is going to be buying and burning our chart every single day. So what does that equal? That's an investor that's literally buying up our chart and then never going to sell it. And if our chart keeps moving up, I naturally believe this is going to onboard more people and more people and more people. And if this actually becomes a real store of value, it creates a system that technically Bitcoin has fallen into, to where people are taking their money from the outside world and storing it in Bitcoin because it's a hedge against the inflation. But this is a hedge against the inflation with actual tokenomics to back your store of value instead of just relying on more people coming in to get it. And that's what I think is interesting about our system. And that kind of goes back to where I'm not really afraid of, if Pulse Chain is remotely successful, I think X's will be very, very simple for our ecosystem because of the X multiplier. Most other projects don't get the X multiplier to the extent that we do. For example, you build on Ethereum now, it's already done 1,000x. No one even got to build DeFi projects at the bottom, or they just didn't, or they're gone now. But the X multiplier just really sets us up for the advantage over everything else, in my opinion.
TG Zen, can you hear me?
I do.
Okay, cool. Mando?
Yeah, we're good, Prairie.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to say something regarding this too. it's funny because when people critique PTGC, I'll just be blunt. I feel as though because it's had such a very unique amount of success so far, that it gets critiqued in an unbalanced way. Because if we add liquidity, people say, oh, it's going to be 280. And then we've got other people, yesterday, for example, oh, you don't have enough liquidity. So it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right? Now, to my understanding, liquidity, the liquidness of any currency is what makes that currency valuable. It's what makes that currency tangible. It's what makes it real, right? Now, obviously, early adopters in anything will get the X's as the adoption grows. But what makes this system, this cryptocurrency unique, like what he's talking about, is that we're taking a chance on a blockchain, obviously here. Everything is speculation at this point. Everyone here knows that, right? This is all a grand experiment. So let me just caveat it with that. But Pulse Chain hasn't done any exits, which means that just from that one metric, whatever X's Pulse Chain does from here, anyone who is coming in now gets those X's. Now, you said, okay, well, what happens after we already do 100X from there? Is the LP going to be so weighty that it can't do anything, right? Well, what actually gives something value in crypto? What makes it attractive? The fact that it is liquid, the fact that it is unruggable, the fact that, it is a real financial product, right? Now, the unique thing that this system has when you ask those questions is as the liquidity grows, the revenue grows. This is a revenue generating cryptocurrency. It actually generates revenue. And that revenue goes right back to the liquidity and to the users in APY, right? To undergird it and to support the actual chart. You actually have continual buying going on. But on top of the fact that it's revenue generating at any market cap, at any amount of liquidity, and the larger the liquidity, the more arbitraging is going on, the more bots can buy up the chart. But on top of that, the token is hyper deflationary. These things are not built into Ethereum. They're not built into Bitcoin. They're not built into a lot of things that we've seen. They're not built into Shiba Inu or anything like that, right? Now, the hyper deflationary aspect of the cryptocurrency means that the only thing that can happen over time, now people can push tokens back into the pools and temporarily make the price go down. But over time, the only thing that can happen with higher amounts of liquidity, higher amounts of volume, is the USD price of the token is being forced to go up because there's always less of those tokens available. And when you have high demand and limited supply, that thing has to go up. It's fundamental economics. You have a ceiling, you have a floor. It's literally 8th grade economics 101, right? So in terms of the X, you have the ability of the underlying blockchain to do 100X, 1,000X, 14,000X, who the hell knows? Plus the X's of the adoption of the actual cryptocurrency. Plus, you have the revenue generating aspect of the cryptocurrency, which to my knowledge, no other cryptocurrency has, which is an innovation that's been created on this blockchain. Plus, it's hyper deflationary, which is constantly pushing the USD price floor of the token up forever. Now, with that said, it's obvious that you can always try to attack a system, and that's actually the sign of intelligence. It's what people do when they're looking for the reason why they, when you get to the point where you're looking for all the reasons why you shouldn't buy a thing, you're basically just trying to pick it apart because you want to make sure that that's something that your money deserves to go into, right? But from every aspect, we haven't seen a crypto like this before. And I feel like pTGC has been unbalanced in some people's assessment of it, because when you compare it to anything else, anytime you hear a critique or maybe a negative question, it's like, okay, give me an example of what you were talking about that you think is better in terms of how the system works, in terms of how the economy of that thing works. We don't have anything. No one ever brings anything to the table. You have people that will critique something, and then you look at what they're doing or what they're talking about on their timelines, and it's shit with $100 in a liquidity pool. While the system is constantly adding, 10 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, 15 grand, 6 grand, like literally on a weekly basis to the most liquid and the best assets that we believe are on chain and that are the most liquid connected to stable coins with the chance of most amount of X. So my question back to you would be, what would you like to see more than that? And what can you give as an example that would be better than that? And that's just a general question. It's not pointed at
I do
anybody.
find that interesting, Mando, because I feel like some days people bring up that we have too much liquidity, and then some days people bring up that we don't have enough liquidity. And what's that kind of tell you? It says like, okay, it sounds like we're right in the right spot. Some people who are, liquidity maxis are like, okay, they need more, which the smart contract's doing. And then some people say, ooh, it's going to be harder to pump because there's not as much liquidity. We don't need any more. So what's that kind of say? It's like, okay, we're pretty much right in the ballpark. There's some people that want a little more, some people that want a little less, some people that look right in the middle and like, yeah, looks good. You know what I mean? You can't make every single person happy because everyone has a different view. That's one thing I love about like the hand in hand of pTGC and UFO. If you love tons and tons of liquidity, dude, UFO has the most liquidity out of pretty much anything on Pulse Chain. That's not like RH tickers themselves. If you're in it for less liquidity, hoping for more X's due to it easier to pump something, well, pTGC has half the amount. It is growing, it is getting added to because it has gone up so many X's against Pulse Chain. And when something goes up so many X's against Pulse Chain, it spreads itself from its liquidity. The price actually starts to run away from its liquidity because the blockchain isn't keeping up. But that's why we, have a smart contract where we actually can add to that system as it's needed. But I just think it's awesome that, we have both sides of the spectrum. Some people are worried that we have too much. Some people are worried that we don't, have enough. That means we're in a good spot.
Correct. And but then you have a lot of people that make comparisons that are just asinine.
I've compared the project to the closest things to it. You can't compare it to like a 1 million market cap token. And I get it. Market cap is an irrelevant number. It's just circulating supply times price. I get it. Everyone can manipulate this. But like a project that's equivalent, we have more liquidity than it. Like any project I find that is somewhat equivalent is where it's at on Pulse Chain. We have more liquidity than it. And then we also have systems in place to add liquidity with every single transaction. So in the future, we will still keep growing on it and growing on it and growing on it. That's what I see.
Zoo, you got anything else? Or a response?
No, that's great. I just again, I'm just exploring. I'm not negative at all, and I'm not trying to bash anything. That's helpful. So I appreciate your time.
No, and again, we appreciate your question, right? We don't care if you're trying to be negative or bash or FUD. We don't care.
No, I'm just trying to understand. I've got a certain amount of assets, and I'm trying to decide how to allocate them. And I'm super excited with what I've done so far with pTG and UFO, and I'm just learning, and I'm just wondering how much more should I allocate, and looking future down the road to say, wow, this is interesting. It seems to be unique and doing exactly what it's designed to do. And you get moon math in your head, and I'm just wondering if that slows down, or if I keep this this exhilaration of the potential. So it was a pretty innocent question about, does this thing become heavy down the road, as it seems to, as I hope it outperforms so many things, right? So just a simple question about how heavy it gets, and again, I think that you answered it by the way you did. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, Zoo. I at any means, we didn't think that was a negative question. That was the question we wanted someone to ask and bring up, and then start that conversation. So we really appreciate you coming up and asking the questions, because that's what makes this conversation engaging. And I hope that we did answer it well about because the honest truth is, as stuff goes up, everything gets heavier. Everything has an S curve, right? Like you're kind of saying, Bitcoin is heavy now. It's getting to possibly the top of its S curve, or it could be in the middle. We don't really know. But I do think the one thing we do know is pTGC and UFO hasn't even started its S curve, due to the fact that pulse chain is below SAC rate. That's something we can all kind of land on, and just know, like, maybe 5 years from now, it might be pretty heavy if it's sitting on 150 million in liquidity. But the nice thing about this unique system compared to anything else is, when it gets heavy, that also means there's more value working for you and the community at the same time. And other tokens can't say that. And that's what I love. You know what I mean? That we have these things put in place that other protocols don't, or just didn't even know how to do, or, it's just super unique to Pulse Chain. It's the honest truth. And that's why I'm just so excited to be here.
Well, and that's insightful too. The fact that, you've got that mechanism working to continue to provide value, which is one reason why I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, and like, for example, you have comparisons to like WISE, for example, right? Like people, we've had a few people say, "Oh, it's just going to be like a WISE token." Are you familiar with WISE at all, Zoo?
I'm not familiar with WISE.
Yeah, then I won't get into it. But these comparisons are laughable. Most of them are very. It just exposes the people that, when they make comments like that, that they actually have no clue what they're talking about in the space. They're not qualified to even talk. Yes, sir.
Does anyone else care to come up and talk? I have a question. YouTube, if you guys have questions on YouTube, drop them in the chat.
I hear you, Coach. Prairie, someone's talking right now, so if you can't hear him, just give him a second to get his question out.
The spaces are getting rugged, guys. So, like, every once in a while, back out and come back in. If you're a speaker, if you're having any glitch, you're going to have to back out and come back in.
I hear you.
I'm going to jump out, guys. I'm totally not hearing anything.
Yes, you do. So once you fulfill,
If I just leave it be
There we go.
locked, do I keep getting tokens?
they were willing to fulfill. So it kind of encourages you to stay in the system, even though you fulfilled the time you promised via code. So yeah, you could just sit there and continue to earn your locking rewards, your reflections, and your staking rewards. And now you're completely liquid. So if the day comes you do need to close it, you don't have to wait for anything. You could just close it right then.
Thank you very much. And thank you to Prairie, Mando, Coach, Zen, everybody. Thanks for everything you do. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the term I like for that is just liquid lock. So once you run the term of the lock, it becomes liquid, and now you can pull it at any time, but you'll still earn until you do. So it becomes a liquid lock.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gosh, when are you guys going to give me a time to chime in? I'm just playing. Love listening.
What up, Coach?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I noticed a project in the Titan X ecosystem, and it's called Element 280, and they're doing relatively the same thing. You buy an NFT and you get rewards off of the tax. So it's a tax token on Ethereum.
Yeah, this
and when people buy or
this isn't a Titan X space, man. If you don't mind.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying someone is copying this idea, or at least it's not copying, but they're getting they got inspiration from this, so it's spreading out there. It's really cool. I'm not saying it's the Titan X space. I'm just saying everyone
on the planet is. I'm not trying to be facetious with you, man, but Zen started an entire chain reaction. Everybody's trying to.
Yes, he did.
Kind of do this, now.
That's where I was going with it. I was just saying that the idea is spreading, and it's pretty cool to see.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think there's already been hundreds of people that have tried to mimic this system, and I think there will be thousands more for the rest of the existence of crypto now. This is one of the only systems I know that actually can generate value, real value, not fugazi value, not getting people in. It actually generates real value using a utility that doesn't even require a human to use that utility. It's just super unique. In my opinion, it solves a lot of the issues that tokens have ran into for the last 10 years. It really does. I don't even think the math behind it has even been tapped into yet, due to the fact that Pulse Chain is still at its bottom. I think once Pulse Chain gets out of the hole it's in, let's say a 5x from here, the math that really kicks on, like literally this engine hasn't even turned on yet. And when it does turn on, it's going to catch eyes, in my opinion, not only on Pulse Chain, not only on ETH, because obviously that community is directly correlated with the Pulse Chain community. Everyone knows that. So they obviously have their eyes on this math, and they've noticed how it works. Obviously, people are trying to mimic it. I think it's going to catch the eyes of all of crypto, personally, because it truly does solve the issue that every token has tried to solve for the existence.
Well,
Yep.
actually, I just wanted to let everybody know that pTGC, its web is now technically on 4 other chains. So it's a pretty cool site to be a part of some kind of humongous web, and it's just going to continue to be growing as well. So what a concept, guys. What a concept.
Have we added any LPs lately?
The big one is the 40K with Hex last night.
Right. I got that. I mean, have we bonded with any other tokens recently?
We haven't, no.
Okay.
I'm sure other people have, but
All right.
you know, that's going to happen forever. I think pTGC will become, you know, this is just an idea, but I do think pTGC is going to become such a store of value that people, as they build, and this isn't just this year, let's say even 4 years from now, when people are building on Pulse Chain, I believe pTGC and UFO will be a thing that people do tie their tokens with because of their properties and the buy and burn that's built into them and how they continue to go up. Because obviously if they tie themselves to something that's going up, it's going to drag their token up as well. And it just, you know, that obviously would help their token to get dragged up. Just like how, you know, we've tied ourselves with Hex because we believe Hex is going to go up. And everything that's tied in liquidity has to bring each other up together based on how big their liquidity tyings is. So 100%, I think the web will be ever growing, not by us, by just people wanting to connect to us. But the beautiful thing about when people want to connect to us is they have to buy our tokens to connect to us, right? They have to buy them out of liquidity and then re-put them back into liquidity, which in turn equals price increase. This is technically the formula of what made ETH successful, because everyone just keeps building on top of ETH and building on top of ETH. And what do you need every time you build on top of ETH? You need ETH. Same goes for Pulse Chain.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
No, you can go.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. A question about the providing liquidity. I was looking for like recommendations. I know not financial advice, but explain more of the like permanent loss. So I have the pTGC, UFO, X protocol, some teddy bear, and I mean nothing too extravagant, but just wondering like what's like so I'm not I don't really understand the permanent loss and like what would I be best off like pairing what with. Because obviously I don't want to lose those. So I bought them. Like just explain the permanent loss type thing when you provide liquidity.
Yeah, so I'll start with pTGC. I don't really suggest people to provide liquidity with pTGC because when you provide liquidity with pTGC, you in turn will be giving up your pTGC reflections, and if you're staking, you'll be giving up your pTGC rewards. So pTGC technically has a single-sided staking built into the code, along with its buy and burn and stuff like that. But you can literally just hold pTGC, and you will get more pTGC. And by you holding pTGC, you had to buy it, obviously, and then you injected your PLS into the web, and then that got distributed across the whole web, depending on how big your entry is. So now that value is actually working for you, and then that's how you're getting paid out, right, is from that value working for you. The arbitrage bots have to pay. So if you're looking to earn like additional APY, that's why a lot of people provide liquidity. You're better off just holding pTGC and staking it if you plan on staying for a while. Other reasons people provide liquidity is like to exit without hurting the chart. If you do provide liquidity to exit without hurting the chart, you know, just keep in mind you will not be earning the APY when you're doing that with pTGC. And then you also get hit with the fee on transaction when you provide LP and when you close it. So you'll be losing, you know, a portion of your supply at the same time. With UFO, there is a smart contract. There's a farm that's built for UFO to where users can provide liquidity, earn APY. So they earn additional APY in the form of PLS. So you can provide LP with UFO and any RH ticker and PDI. And it's free of the fee on transaction. The smart contract literally wipes the fee. So you can go in and out feeless. And then you earn PLS rewards. That's the farm. So what a farm is when you provide liquidity, you earn the normal liquidity fees, but then you also get an incentive on top of that via another token. So we figured out a way to give that incentive in a form of PLS. But going back to your question, impermanent loss is still a thing. So if you provide liquidity, let's say with UFO and PLS, and UFO outperforms PLS by a lot. So in the last 4 months, it's outperformed PLS by, I think, a 4x, maybe Prairie can double check, maybe a 2x, whatever it is. What happens is technically people are buying your UFO from you and they're giving you their PLS. So you're naturally going to be exiting out of your position to where if you're looking for X's in general, you would have just been better off holding UFO because you wouldn't have gotten exited out of your position as the price ran up. Does that make sense at all? It works in the other direction too. If UFO starts to underperform PLS, people will be taking your PLS and giving you their UFO. So then you end up with more of the underperforming asset. And this is, so liquidity providing, in my opinion, it's a very long-term play. It's not for everyone. If it's more of a whales game, in my opinion. Obviously, everyone believes differently. But again, with UFO, it's got single-sided staking built into the system, and you don't even got to stake it. All you got to do is hold UFO, and you're going to continue to earn more UFO with every single transaction. So it kind of solves the thing where if you want to make money off of your money with either of these products, all you got to do is hold them. Because by you holding it, the system pays you.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm currently doing. I'm holding them both, and yeah, the pTGC, I'm just staking right now. I haven't locked anything, but yeah, I do see the rewards coming in for both. So basically, I mean, just pretty much keep doing what I'm doing would probably be sufficient.
So,
yeah, I would say,
Zen, can I for just 1 second, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, if you don't understand liquidity provisioning, to be honest, you really shouldn't be doing it. I just want to put the caveat out there. The system is designed to where you don't have to do it and you don't need to do it. But if you want, like for example, if you're participating with UFO, are you actually providing liquidity with UI within UFO?
No, I'm just holding both of them.
Okay.
pTGC and UFO.
So I will give you advice. This isn't financial advice, but this is just blockchain advice. Until you understand providing liquidity, you should just be holding your UFO in your wallet and accumulating more UFO. There's no reason to. Now, in a very simplistic form, if you take anything, pair it with UFO in the UI, if that thing moves up, if UFO moves up faster, like if UFO moves up faster than the hex or the pulse, whatever you're pairing it with, it's taking your UFO away from you. And what you're getting is more of the pulse, more of the hex, and the little bit of, and the amount of pulse yield that you're left with there. So that's the impermanent loss. Okay. So on a very simplistic level, you have to ask yourself, do you want to take the chance of potentially UFO outperforming the other assets and you having less of the UFO, but more pulse yield, or would you rather have more UFO coming in and just ride the thing up? That's kind of the simplistic form of it. But it's important that people don't just go into LP provisioning unless they have a grasp of it. It just really is.
Okay, so simply it's just like I'll stand on the corner and sold something. Basically, they're buying what I'm selling, and they're giving me their dollar bills. So basically, just like that. So you're losing, you'd be losing the UFO and gaining the PLS, basically. Okay.
Yeah, basically what you're doing is you're scaling out of your position because you're the one providing the liquidity.
Okay, so if it's something like maybe like later on down the road to try and exit your position, like you said earlier, without hurting the chart too much, it'd be better off doing something like later on down the road if I wanted to take profits at that time. Correct?
Yeah, correct. So,
Okay.
if you want to learn, especially, is it Blackthorn?
Yep. Yeah, it's Blackthorn.
Oh, okay. If you want to learn,
No, this isn't Blackthorn talking. This is Crypto Wolf.
Oh, Crypto Wolf.
Yeah, I'm part of your group too, Coach. So
Okay, sweet. I'm going over
Oh.
all that stuff on Monday, so I'll go in a little bit more in depth of that kind of stuff.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for asking those questions, though, because those questions are really, really relevant to these systems. So I assume if you have these questions, other people will too. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I figured, and that's kind of So I was just making sure of how it worked. So, but yeah, it's pretty much how I expected, or what I expected. Thanks a lot for everything you guys do.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for, being part of the community and, being along for the ride. It's going to be a journey, in my opinion, and it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I just wish I got in sooner, but I still got in in the middle, so early.
I honestly, this is my opinion, but I think everything on Pulse Chain's early right now. We are literally below sacrifice rate. I know when the sacrifice for PulseX was going on, I remember seeing so many people on Twitter just wishing that they could get Pulse Chain at a sacrifice rate. And here we are, half of it. And I personally believe this is just the beginning for the RH ecosystem, and anyone here with legitimate sustainable projects and with Pulse Chain RH projects are early. And obviously that's just my opinion. That's one of the reasons why I built over here. Could be completely wrong, or we could all be completely right. Let's hope for the second one.
Yeah, I provided liquidity with UFO and PLS 6 months ago when it first came out, and my UFO is now down 20%. My UFO bag is down 20%. I have more PLS. That's just how it works. But I've been getting rewarded like crazy, so it's worth it to me. It's worth the gamble. So, but yeah, you can get exited out when you LP provide, and on PLS, well, on the PulseX, it is V2 liquidity, so it's full range. So you can't just get, you wouldn't get 100% out. They don't have V3 on that system yet, but yeah, you're going to be fine. I think it's worth it. It's a trade-off. You're saying, okay, I will trade this coin for that coin. You're going to pay me a fee, and that fee is going to go into your PLS pool, your PLS UFO pool. Plus, you're going to get the rewards from the UFO system.
Yeah, 100%. One thing to keep in mind, and this is where Blackthorn kind of took advantage of this opportunity, is the UFO shares rates when you probably got in Blackthorn were roughly 5 times cheaper than they are today. So for him to lock in the same amount of UFO share rates that you did, he would have to spend 5 times the amount of capital, and that's just what's written in the code. That's written in the code for multiple reasons. What that does for Blackthorn is that incentivizes him to stay within the system, because if he closes it down, he gives up his UFO share rate, so he locks in. But that doesn't mean the UFO share rate is not a good price now also. A year from now, people could be looking at these UFO share rates like they're the biggest steal of a lifetime, but who knows? But there's just there is a lot of moving parts, and you have to really understand what you're doing. And I always kind of tell people, if you don't fully understand it yet, research it for a week. By just holding the token, you have your place in line. You got your token. You're gonna get reflections by just holding it, and that's a good spot. Also, don't think you're gonna miss out on something in a matter of 5 seconds. It's more important to understand the system and make the moves that work best for you. Go ahead, Coach.
I was going to say, you're in the right place to learn from not just myself, but a lot of other people, or anybody in this group, in this call. Zen, Mando, Perry, Moon King, he doesn't know that much about liquidity. I'm just playing. Shaka, everybody, Goo God.
Oh, you went there, Coach?
Hey, no.
On live?
No.
Friend, Doc? Oh, you were about to get rizzled.
No, he's talked about it, saying, I don't like liquidity. So it's just like, it's coming out as, but he does very well, you know? He does a different game.
Yeah, I think it doesn't mean that he doesn't understand it. I just think that means he doesn't like it. And that kind of goes back to not liquidity providing is not for everyone. You do lose out on X's when you liquidity provide. This is known. We definitely know Moon King's in it for X's. He makes X's all the time.
I do have one more question. For sending the pTG and UFO, send it from MetaMask to a ledger. You have to you pay the tax when you just send it also, right? So I'd have to pay the tax on it.
Yes, the fee is on all transactions.
Okay, so I tried doing it and it keeps failing. But I don't know if I was setting in my ledger or if or do I just do the same thing, just turn the slippage, or do I have to change the slippage?
No, the first thing you should do is make sure your wallet's fully updated.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know of people that have it on ledgers, so you shouldn't have a problem. It's definitely something on your end.
Okay. Yeah, so I was able to send like my teddy bear and my X protocol and all that to it.
It could be your slippage. What do you have it set at?
But when I buy it, I set it to like 6 when I buy UFO. But I'm pretty sure I got the same thing when I'm sending it out.
You shouldn't have to have slippage set to.
I guess for buying, right?
You have to have the slippage set to do the transfer,
slippage
right?
on PulseX has nothing to do with sending tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what, yes. Yeah. So it just must be, or maybe I don't have enough pulse, or I'm pretty sure I have enough pulse to send it and all that. But I'll give it a try again. So like I said, that's the only one I had the issue with was UFO. I think I was able to send pTGC, but not the UFO for some reason.
If you're sending a significant amount, I always advise send a little bit first to make sure, if you're sending to the exact correct address, then it goes through, and then send the rest.
Yeah, I was going to point this out, but you kind of just made my point incorrect, but I'll say it anyways. If your pTGC is staked, you're not going to be able to send it. It's going to still be in your wallet. So a lot of people get confused because they see the pTGC in their wallet, so they think they can send it, they think they can sell it, but you can't. You have to unstake it to do so. But you said you already sent your stake, and obviously UFO, this isn't the case because you don't stake UFO. It's always just liquid in your wallet. But maybe you should recheck it. If you were having problems with pTGC, it's probably because you have it staked, and then you need to unstake it, then send it, and then restake it. Just you can't.
Yeah, that's a good question. I was going to ask because it still shows in your wallet, even though it's staked. So I guess it'll just deny the transaction. Because like when you're holding liquidity, it's not there at all. Like I had PDI and UFO in the LP, and when you provide the liquidity, it's gone, but staked, it still shows as if you can see the actual balance.
Yeah, well, real quick. So with both pTGC and UFO, I call them both soft staking because you keep self-custody the whole entire time. And that's one thing that's really unique to our ecosystem. Because with most tokens, when you stake them, you actually lose custody of your tokens and they end up in a smart contract. With our system, they always remain in your wallet, which in my opinion, that's a huge teaching from RH, and it was a huge implementation to our ecosystem. When you're talking about UFO, when you provided UFO in PDI, you're actually not losing the custody of your tokens. How providing liquidity works is you're giving your tokens to the PulseX smart contract that's giving you PLP tokens. So now you have PLP tokens in your wallet, and that's a claim check for your tokens when you decide to close your LP. This is just liquidity providing. But when you're staking these PLP tokens with normal farms, you actually lose these PLP tokens. With our system, these PLP tokens remain in your wallet at all times. So what you can actually do is you can get the contract address of your PLP tokens for UFO, and you can actually put those into your wallet and you can see them there. You don't lose custody of those either. And that's what's unique about our farm.
Well, that's dope. Okay, nice.
Yeah, I think we're the first people to like really figure out a way to do that. I don't know of another token that has a farm where you keep custody of your PLP tokens. And self-custody is why we're all here. So that's why we took a lot of effort to keep pTGC soft staking and keep UFO soft staking. So self-custody has remained at all times.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll double check that when I get home. Yeah, maybe it was the pTGC that I wasn't able to send to it, which makes sense because it's all staked. So, so if I want to send it, unstake it first and then send it. Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah,
appreciate
correct.
it.
Yep. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, request to speak, and come on up and ask your questions. Mando, Banana, Coach, is there anything else you guys wanted to go through in particular? I know we've had a pretty busy week. I think we've tapped into a lot of it.
I had a question as far as the DAO goes and how much human interaction is involved in the actual deployment of those funds, and then the interpretation of the proposals, just kind of reading through them. I know a lot of them are pair with an RH token or buy and burn. What's the P2, P1s? I mean, I assume those are particular pools, but is there a way to really interpret on what we're actually planning to deploy when we're voting on that?
Right now, they're pretty vague because we're just pretty much sticking to LP ads with RH tickers or buy and burns. It's what the protocol has been doing pretty much for pTGC has been around a year, and 99.9, like literally, I don't know of one proposal that's gone to different for the most part. I think one went to like a little campaign where it gave a little bonus to people who purchased, but that's obviously just one occasion. It's pretty much because it's been doing the same thing for the whole entire year. And individual community members of pTGC, the stakers, create those proposals, and then communities vote on it. And if it gets upvoted, the community member that made that proposal carries out the proposal.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And in the future that could change. Like our community has already talked about how when Pulse Chain's prices become less cheap, like right now they're extremely discounted, so it makes a lot of sense buying them up and pairing them with our ecosystem because that makes our LP stronger and Hearts Lost stronger. But in the future, it could be going all to buy and burns because the RH tickers are no longer at the extreme discount, so maybe it makes more sense to just increase the price of our protocol and take tokens off of the market because of just basic supply and demand. I was recently just talking to someone about this. Scarcity brings value. So that's why we're so big on these buy and burns, because without scarcity, there's actually no value. My easiest example is for like water coming to your house. So as long as water's flowing to your house, you don't give water a lot of value, right? You turn on your faucet, you get water, you drink it. water doesn't have a lot of value. But let's say the water company in your area shuts the water off and, drinking water is no longer coming to your house. Well, now water becomes one of the most valuable things in the world because everyone needs water. And just because you turned on the scarcity of it, it now has extreme amounts of value. So that's how I look at it is, scarcity brings value. So that's why once the RH tickers leave the station, the buy and burn will probably kick back in and the community will, push votes mainly to just buy and burns. And let's say at the top of the market where we're at the top of the bull market, maybe our community and, our communities have talked about this, want to pair with stable coins. So at the top of the market, if we pair LP with stable coins, we're going to actually hedge ourselves against the downtrend of the market. And also those liquidity pools will create great arbitrage opportunities for our ecosystem. And if those liquidity pools create good arbitrage for our ecosystem, obviously then our ecosystem gains more value because there's going to be constant market making against those two pairs. And then that value goes back to our underlying value of the asset, which is buy and burns, LP ads, and APY for our holders.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking just the specificity of the proposals themselves. We've been lucky enough, lucky and unlucky that, the RH tickers in general have remained at their lows, right? So generally, it doesn't matter which the deployment is, was probably going to be a good return in long time. But if there becomes one that, for whatever reason, communities choose that differentiate and separates itself, obviously with anything else, you want to try and buy whatever that lowest one was. And so, like I said, with the proposals, reading through them, if, the intention will be eventually, hey, to deploy with PulseX or Inc. or whatever the token may or may not be.
Yeah, I think if there is a specific plan to it, like, hey, this is the specific token we know we're going after, then that would be made specifically clear. But with where we're at in the system, everything's still moving at this bottom level. So, each day is almost different, right? And right now we kind of know it's all RH tickers are undervalued, but in the future when we know, hey, we're just, the community is just planning on doing buy and burns, is kind of what we've talked about. Maybe the community makes their proposals strictly just say buy and burns, like buy and burns right when this comes out. But that's obviously been done in the past, but more recently it's been kind of just kept to those LP ads with RH tickers and stuff like that.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So what do you say to somebody who says something like that doesn't, pairing with a stable coin doesn't account for sell pressure? Like it doesn't let's play the devil's advocate on something like that.
What's the question though?
Well, it's not so much a question as much as it is a statement, right?
Like, how does that help the price decrease with the market?
Yeah. The argument being, sell pressure ruins that kind of an argument. Like if people are selling, even if you're paired with stables or something like this.
Well, that happens even if you're not paired with stables, right? So if you're attached to only PLS and PLS goes down, you go down. Well, what happens if you have additional sell pressure to it? You go down more, right? So if PLS took a dip of 5%, but you had a good amount of sell pressure, you could be down 10%. But let's say you have buy pressure when PLS goes down 5%. Well, then you could be down 0 that day. So what your liquidity tying is pretty much an average. So if you have a bunch of different liquidity pairings, your like percentage increase or decrease of that day, excluding human interaction, is the mean of those liquidity pools. So in a downtrend market, you want to make it so you have a good amount of liquidity pairings with stable coins, because if you're looking for the mean, the average of all your liquidity pools, the stable coins aren't going to go down. If Pulse Chain is going to go down for an entire year, this is what happens in a bear market. Once you hit the tip of the bull market, usually all assets go down for a year, right? This is a bear market. So you're going to get the mean of all those assets going down. But if you can put a few other parts of the equation in that aren't going down, it's going to help your average out. So instead of on an average of going down 5% a day, due to being tied with stablecoins, you could be only going down, let's say 3% a day. So you're going to hedge yourself against the downtrend. But obviously, yes, if you have sells on your chart, it's going to push you down more. But if you have buys on your chart, it's going to push you down less. With our system, we have buy and burns built into it. So with these arbitrage opportunities taking place, like when the bots have to fix the prices between the UFO or pTGC token in the downtrend market, it's actually going to equal buys on our chart. So if you eliminate the human interaction whatsoever, like no one's buying, no one's selling, just market making of the market shifting down and us having pairings with stable coins, it's actually going to equal net positives on the charts, because there's going to be the buy and burn who is an investor that's never going to sell. So with every single transaction, a portion of that's buying our chart and sending it to the debtors. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to completely beat out the bear market of the whole entire downtrend from everything sucking us down, but it will help our hedge against it, right? And this is, like we always talk about, the average. Not every day is going to be a green day with pTGC. Not every day is going to be a red day with pTGC. But when we zoom out and we look at what the average we've done on a daily basis, when you take the average of what we've done since we launched, it's pretty much like a 45-degree angle up and to the right, right?
So let me put it in a simplistic way, right? So let's say you have half, let's just make it simple. Let's say you're at a certain $100 million market cap, and half of your, and all of your liquidity is with Pulse Chain, right? Then this is just total hypothetical, just making shit up, right? Half of it goes out of Pulse Chain and into DAI stablecoin. And then Pulse Chain starts to go down, right? Well, if you had it all paired with the thing that's going down, it obviously would go down more. If you have half of it paired with a stable coin, that part of the LP is not going down. So there's a percentage there that's mitigating or hedging that part of your LP that's paired with pTGC from going down. Now, that still doesn't mitigate in the sense of, with any crypto, selling into those LPs. It only mitigates the portion of that economic energy that would have been in another form of value that's going down versus another form of value that's staying at that exact dollar amount. So you're not, it's not like a silver bullet. And there's nothing in crypto that's a silver bullet from, people selling into a chart, but it mitigates a percentage of it and helps hedge a certain percentage of it.
This is my argument, and because Coach came and said I don't know anything about liquidity, I'm gonna come up and say it.
Good.
Because it's always been my argument.
It's
always been my argument from day one. Hex is a pure case study from providing liquidity and what it mattered. It truly didn't matter for Hex, and Hex still went down 99.9% based off of being majorly paired with USDC. So that concept is very flawed in my opinion, because we're not paired to Ethereum, we're paired with USDC. The problem with this whole argument, and where I say it is a flawed concept, it's not that I don't get LP, it's that I get the market. And what you guys aren't putting in consideration is the sell pressure from the market being in a bear market. People think the way they think during a bear market, whether you're paired with Pulse Chain or whether you're paired with USDC or whether you're paired with Ethereum, or it doesn't matter. The majority of the market will sell no matter what. So when you say, hey, I will pair with USDC instead of pairing with Pulse during a bear market, please tell me how that worked out for Hex. It didn't matter. It actually created more sell pressure because people had a way to stabilize themselves without worrying about it. So that is a prime example of a case study that happened with this whole liquidity providing thing because nobody ever considered the market and what they will do during a bear market. And if you're going to analyze a market, you can't be fully mathematically about it. You have to consider the actual people doing the selling or trading of a coin.
Okay, Zan, we got to have a rebuttal, man. We got to have a rebuttal. This is a defense attorney case now. I'm just playing.
I will add a little bit to it, though. I think a portion of the downtrend of Hex was due to the inflation of the protocol, which was unethical APY paid out with no value added to the system. So if you pay out unethical APY for a total of 3 years and people have locked their token for those 3 years, once those tokens hit the market, they don't only get their initial out that they're already 1,000x up on, but they also got another 50% of token supply. And all of that APY that was paid out and their initial bought tokens were never actually backed by more value into the system. So there was only so much value for them to actually pull out of the system. And in my opinion, there was a lot of people going after that little amount of money because these people were up tons and tons of X's and had APY that was produced in an unethical manner. To an extent, I am 100% believer in Hex, and I think that's all part of the code and the volatility is part of the system. But I do believe that our tokenomics will fight against this stronger than most other protocols due to our APY being paid out only ethically via, that has to be done via on a transaction, which is value entering the system. And due to our web structure, as the market moves up and down, even if it's in a negative direction, those create buy and burns on our chart. But 100% in a bear market, we're going to get pulled down with the bear market. And like you said, there will be sell pressure because people are exiting the system because of the bear market, right? I just think that we have a few things in play that hedges us in a different way than Hex did.
Would you also add, though, before B comments, that with pTGC, there is no liquidity gaming. There is no pulling liquidity.
Yeah, there's really just liquidity adding. Liquidity gets added with every single transaction that happens on chain, and this is from human interaction or bot interaction. If you look at, and this would be an interesting thing to do, I should probably do it. Look at the amount of volume that's existed with even just eHex since its adoption. And if you just took 1% of every single one of those transactions and turned it into a buy and burn, like obviously we have 5% on every transaction, so it's quite a bit more. But even if you just took 1% of all the volume that's been on Hex since its inception, I believe Hex would be at a completely different price personally. And I don't think it would take a 99% dip.
I think it would, mainly because as I look at how this market reacts to bear markets, I don't think it mattered. So there is not one coin that has solved the issue of, hey, we're not going to drop 95%. It doesn't have to drop 95%. Like every coin does not have to drop 85 to 95% during a bear market, but they do. Why? Is it because everything's tied to Ethereum? Because everything's tied to Bitcoin? Because everything's tied to this, and that? I do not agree with that statement. I do believe that what happens is people leave the system or the ecosystem that they are in, and they actually cash it in and leave the system as itself. So until you find a product where the majority, not even the majority, like probably, I don't know what the number is. You would have to really dig down the numbers to where the people don't sell, it will not crash. Here's the issue. Even that case study is flawed because Richard Hart owns 95% of the coins and don't sell. So what truly is the answer if the markets are leaving regardless of how many of who owns what percentage of what? But even in our case study of Richard Hart alone, coins are dropping 85, 95, 99%. However, he owns 95% of the coins and they still do what they do.
Yeah, but those coins are not part of the circulating supply. You can only use circulating
It doesn't
supply.
matter. It is what it is.
Matter.
Like you can't. So you're telling me Pulse Chain's not part of the circulating supply? Richard Hart coins?
No,
It is.
We were
It
just talking about
absolutely is.
Hex, and now you're talking about
Hex also. They're in wallets that he owns. That is
right,
on,
but they don't.
That is on
but
the
they don't
market.
ever get
It can
sold.
be sold. It can get sold. So you can't say it don't.
Yeah,
get
but
sold.
the
It
case
can
study
get sold.
has to consider what actually happened.
Exactly.
Right.
So you're proving my point. You don't realize you are, but you're proving it. They are circulating supply. They don't get sold. It still drops 99%. So what is your answer to that?
I wouldn't consider them circulating supply because it's almost the same thing as minting a token and then just sending 90% of the supply to the dead address. It's almost
However,
of that
they
supply
can
never
get.
even-
However, they can get sold. You just don't see them. They don't get sold, but they can get sold. So you still have to put in the concept that they are circulating.
Yeah, but that's a category mistake in the context of this specific conversation because they didn't get sold and they don't get sold.
So prove my point on why it dropped 99% still then.
Because of the human interaction.
In that concept, they shouldn't, the price should not drop. I'm giving you a case study that literally is proving my point that we deal with day in and day out.
Okay. B-Rouge, can you hear me?
So what would make that coin not drop 99% when 95% of it's burnt?
Can anybody hear me?
Still waiting.
Yeah,
Coach.
Still waiting.
Can you hear Coach B?
No, I can't.
All right, I'll be right back.
I hear everybody else, but I don't hear Coach. Yeah, I'm not hearing him. I saw his mic go off.
Yeah, but so the only reason price goes up is from people holding for the most part. So if all these Pulse Chain or Hex people locked or burnt their tokens and got their T shares, and now their T shares are coming out, their locks are ending, and they're forced to unlock them, obviously, or they're going to get heavily penalized. They need to make the decision on, do I just continue to hold this? Do I restake it? Or do I sell it on the market? But now their quantity of tokens has, let's say, doubled in this amount of time. But they got paid this APY with no value actually entering the system with that APY being paid out. So then, in my opinion, and this is pretty much a whale game at a certain point, these whales are racing each other for that dime, right? Because if they don't restake it, they're going to get pushed out via inflation because the people who are staking are the ones getting the inflation. So they want to get after the money that's there, which then creates that volatile dip down. But then in a bull market, people are going to be locking up their tokens, which then creates deflation. And that's like the deflationary metric of Hex, which then pushes the price really, really high if people are buying supply and then burning it by creating the T shares, which in my opinion, that's what creates that really, really high price volatility of Hex. And it's almost unnatural in a way. That's how it did that 10,000X is literally people were buying it and then in turn burning it, but getting paid out in future inflation. When that future inflation hits, it does create down pressure on the chart. But
so I'll give an example of the potential answer, and I have a second example that would actually prove a point too, but I'll wait that for later. So you're basically, your argument is because of the inflation that allows the price to still do its 99 whatever percent. So you're telling me if there was no inflation, that coin should not do a 95 to 99% drop.
It 100% still could.
That's what I'm saying. It still could. And based on the market and every single coin that we says, it still does. So if we put pulse chain in consideration, and let's take out the miners and anyone who's validating, and that little bit of inflation, let's take that out of the picture. And let's just say it's just like a Solana, we'll just say. It's a form out there, it's fully centralized, it is what it is. If it was tied to USDC, that would be your answer. As long as not as many people don't sell and Richard Hart owns 95% of it, it should not drop 95 to 99%. If that was the case, why isn't it that easy that people just do that?
I look at it as, what is the reason not to sell though? If you're up and it's the tip of the bull market and you're about to run into technically a 2-year bear market or 1 year, whatever you want to create the exact bottom is, what would be the reason that you don't sell and just get the money while you can and just stay out of the system for, 2 years? And this is what does create that, 95% drop. It's the whole entire market. This isn't just you doing it. This is everyone doing it. This is people doing it in Bitcoin. This is people doing it in Ethereum. Since everything's tied in liquidity, you get dragged down from that. And then you also get dragged down by your own community also doing the same thing.
Correct. And that's why I've always been saying when you complain about liquidity, not complain, but focus your mindset on liquidity too much, you're actually giving yourself a flawed argument. Because if any of you guys were back here, which majority, I would say 99% of the people in here listening or will listen to in the future, wasn't here back in the day when Bitcoin wasn't actually tied to anything, and it still dropped 95 to 99%. So the idea of liquidity is very flawed.
Well, you're not taking into account of the human interaction of crypto. And
I am definitely taking into account. That is my argument,
that is exactly the full reason why things go down 80 to 95%. It's just from the LPs moving down and then human interaction. It's like with anything, housing markets, stock markets.
That's why I say you're proving my point, man. That's why I say it's a flawed concept.
Well, it's not really flawed because we can't control human interaction.
There we go.
But that's with anything in life.
Yeah. So when I hear people, what happens is when you preach the liquidity game, and that's what matters. Like the problem is the way people believe and hear things. They take it as the answer. And it just isn't the answer because it's flawed. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't help the situation. I've never said it doesn't help the situation. I've never said I'm against it. I said it's a flawed concept because there is a piece of that concept, a piece of that puzzle that can't or will never have been answered. And I can go through the history and literally teach you different scenarios where that concept is flawed. Literally, Bitcoin back in 2008 all the way up to 2014 really wasn't paired with much that had the liquidity to make it even matter. The 13 coins that was paired to Bitcoin only back in 2013 when I first started didn't even touch the liquidity that Bitcoin had sitting at $100 million market cap. It was a joke, but it was easy to pump the coins to quote unquote gain more Bitcoin. And therefore that was the ability to gain more Bitcoin. But it doesn't matter because prior to that, there was nothing tied to Bitcoin and it still dropped 95 to 99%. So when I make the argument that it is a flawed concept with this whole liquidity providing thing, I'm not saying it isn't a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a flawed thing that you really really shouldn't concentrate too much on because I'm giving you examples of scenarios. Wise token is another. If you know anything about Wise token, that is the biggest pairing to Ethereum than all of crypto in general. It probably has the most liquidity possible. However, why is it still dropping when Ethereum is going up? Well, yeah, you can talk about the inflation that's coming through, but it was dropping while Ethereum was going up while Ethereum was going up during the bull market, and they couldn't stake. The stakes weren't coming out to where that was a big deal. Why? Because people were just selling the shit. They were still
but at the same time, you never had any price appreciation because they paired 55,000
because it was in the beginning. It did because it was hype. It was a hype scenario.
Yeah, but you had price appreciation for fucking 1 week, bro.
Yes, and then it was all down, but the whole time, Nando, the whole time, Ethereum went from $85. The whole time, Ethereum went from $85 to $4,600.
Yes,
and Rise did nothing but go down the whole time after that. You can't say it's because of you can't say it's because of the inflation that came in because it was only staked. People weren't even having enough stakes for it to
no, you're correct.
For it to matter.
No, you're correct.
Because it was the first year.
The issue with Wise was that when you take a fucking Fugazi coin and you pair it day one with $150 million, literally it's so weighty from the second you launch it that it doesn't matter if Ethereum does a 5x.
That's what I'm saying. It's a flawed concept. You're
right, but not everything is. No, I'm not. Not everything. So for example, if he would have launched Wise and took 4% of the ETH and deployed the contract to where you didn't have $155 million of ETH in there, you had $2 million of ETH in there. The system would have exploded in value. Then you could have had all that ETH injected over time. You wouldn't have Wise token would have looked completely different.
Now you're playing liquidity games. Now you're playing liquidity games, and this is what I'm trying to tell you. The idea of paired liquidity, the pairing of the liquidity, is flawed because that use case right there is a prime example that when you have so much liquidity paired to it, it doesn't run up like the other coin. It'll pull it up. But there's always going to be more sell pressure than there is buy pressure, and therefore that idea is flawed.
The only thing that people could do in Wise is sell it. Why? Because the price could never go up. Why?
Look at the first year.
Because you know I was there.
I know you were there, and that's why I'm surprised that you're not saying it in the way that you should.
Well, I think that we're not articulating the reality that when you pair that much liquidity with a shit coin day one, you remove its ability to go up against the sell pressure.
You also remove the ability for it to go down. Unless it goes down. That's the whole concept of this whole liquidity pair.
That's right? All that it did was go down. All it's ever done is
exactly.
Go down.
However, Ethereum
you're not making sense, man.
No. Ethereum went on and did from the bottom, which is when pretty much Wise launched, a 54x. Right?
It did.
The coin that it is paired to, Ethereum, did a 54x. Wise went down.
Okay, so what is the Wise's inflation? How does the stakers get? It gets from
it's just like Hex, but
exactly.
It's just like no. See, Coach, you don't understand Wise. It's the same thing. People don't stake for 1 year. Everyone didn't stake for 1 year. Actually, the main guy staked his shit way back when. Like way back. So like the concept of Hex, it didn't even last that long. It just went up for a hype cycle and then only went down. Staking had no play into that. I just want to let you know that. So the concept of pairing that much Ethereum with a token and it still only went down makes it a flawed concept. It doesn't say it doesn't help or hurt. It probably would have went down faster and harder if it didn't have as much. still went down and is the biggest liquidity pairing with Ethereum in all of crypto.
Okay, now let's talk. Can we talk about Bitcoin for right now? So, like every single time. Well, listen.
But go ahead.
Okay, so like after 2020 or 2013, what actually happened to Bitcoin? What happened after like the next 5 years? What was added? More liquidity. So what did that actually do in turmoil to the Bitcoin price? That price floor went up over time. So the more liquidities, the higher the price floor of.
And you're reducing supply at the same time.
Exactly.
Liquidity wasn't the reason. The true reason was it's called an adoption curve.
Yeah,
I don't think liquidity was the reason why Bitcoin.
Well, and it has to do with a big portion of that. Like right now, why do you think Bitcoin's price is so high?
I disagree because USDT actually didn't even come into play until 2017, 2018.
But like
I mean,
but as liquidity was added to the Bitcoin network and tokens were removed from supply with each halving, the price has gone up millions of X.
That is the main reason why that's an adoption curve mixed with tokenomics. That's not liquidity. That's why that's a flaw.
Well, you can't
have
the price go up. You can't have the price go up from no cents to 70,000 without liquidity.
I understand. I understand that, but that is not the reason. That is not the reason it went up. So that's not even part of our argument. It's just
part of the
pointless argument.
Well,
it's the point. It's a very pointless argument.
How does that cryptocurrency as a global currency go up? It's people are buying it.
Yes, more people are bringing in dollars. It has nothing to do with.
Not going to buy an
Listen.
coin.
Okay, so let's break down because I don't know if everyone knows the history of Bitcoin. So from 2008 to about 2017. There was no real true liquidity. It was Fugazi coin built on, let's say 2016, because that's when Ethereum came out. So there was no, for 8 years, there were Fugazi crap coins that you've never even heard of. I guarantee most people in here have never even heard of that was paired to Bitcoin. They had the little bull markets and they died and you'll never see them again. So what made the price of Bitcoin go up from 2008 all the way to 2016 when Ethereum finally came out and people were starting to trade with real value type coins? Is it liquidity? No.
Well, it's part of it.
It's not being tied to it. It's not the tying of the liquidity to Bitcoin. No, that's not the answer. The answer is more people came in with more money and put it into Bitcoin, an adoption curve, and bought the coin, which made the
which
coin
injects liquidity.
Correct. But the idea of liquidity pairing has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's just that people took their money. It's just people took their money and bought more. Wait. And bought more of the coin. There were no exchanges at the time. Like you guys,
that was before a V2.
Like you guys are so new. Ethereum wasn't even in the ballpark. Ethereum didn't come to 2020.
All right.
I think
liquidity is so stupid.
Why does the U.S. dollar have value?
Because someone says it does.
Oh,
no, you're going away from the argument.
No, it's not.
Like,
I'm giving you
you're
sidetracking. I'm not sidetracking anything. It's supply, speculation, and liquidity.
Okay,
that's the only three things that matter.
Like,
we can walk it back.
Yeah, like you go ahead and split off the argument. I'm just going to end it there. Because the point that I'm making is liquidity pairing had absolutely nothing to do with Bitcoin going up.
Well, right, but that was before that kind of, like...
It doesn't matter. Case study is a case study. Case study is a case study. $0 to $20,000 with absolutely no liquidity pairing. Realistically, like you can make a Fugazi and say, hey, this is the price. Start paying for it. That's what exchanges could do. So they did start coming on board. Binance, it wasn't even freaking around.
Yeah, but we're not talking. When we're talking about Bitcoin's life cycle originally, we're not talking about the way liquidity works in the same way as a V2 AMM. It's not the same thing.
But you have to put it in consideration as a use when you're talking about data and look at the whole picture of what can make a coin go up, what can make a coin go down. This is why I preach that it's flawed, because nobody can give me an answer that can combat me. And you guys try to, and we all go back to saying, it's the same answer, which makes me say, I'm finally waiting for someone to prove me wrong, why my hypothesis of it being flawed is incorrect.
Can I go real quick, B-Roots?
Yeah, I've been waiting for you, man. You've been sitting there.
Well, you guys are pretty hard to talk over. I won't lie. It's like three of you guys yelling at each other. But so I don't think our argument was that the pairing with the stable coins will create no down pressure on the chart. It would just hedge against it. And you can confirm, right, B-Roots, that the pairing with the stable coin will hedge us against the downtrend of the market. Is that correct? Yes or no?
If I see a 95 to 99% decrease coming, I will absolutely sell every coin that I have to hedge myself against that.
But
that is actually
That wasn't the question, B.
I'm answering your question. Yes, I will hedge and leave the ecosystem to protect myself.
But I get what you're saying, but that wasn't the question. By a protocol can't just turn off, obviously I guess someone could rug it and then re-add it in the next bull market.
Well, that's not happening.
But that's not happening. So what can a protocol do to hedge against the downturn of the rest of the market? And that's what we're talking about here is, yes, by pairing with stable coins, let's say instead of us doing a 95% dip, it might make us land at an 85% dip or, so on and so forth. So that was a net positive. That didn't hurt us. So I wouldn't call that a fugazi or anything. I would just say it hedges against the downtrend of the rest of the market, and that's the goal.
Correct. That is always the goal. The thing that I say is flawed, I think we're getting a little off.
And I want to go one more thing.
That's why I say I'm not against it. I'm just saying
it's not the complete solution. No, it's not the complete solution. There is no complete solution. But it is a hedge against it. I do want to give you one more thing that separates us in this unique situation. And again, it's not the complete solution, but it's a hedge against it. We are one of the only tokens when we hit these high numbers of liquidity that actually make value off of its liquidity. Bitcoin does not make money off of its liquidity. You know who does? Coinbase.
Correct.
Exchanges. Our system has actually took the business model of Coinbase and made it to where that economic value that it creates goes back to the underlying value of the token via buy and burns of the asset that can never be sold in the market like you're talking about doing. So you're saying as a user, hey, when the bear market comes, I'm going to sell my tokens and take profits because I know everything's going down. But you know what can't? The debt address. And right now that holds 12% of the supply of pTGC. Yes, we can still have the 90% dip. That's not what I'm getting at. I agree with you, but that's a hedge against the 90% dip, along with the USD, the stable coin ads, and then take into consideration throughout the whole entire bear market, Coinbase still makes money because people still trade and there's still market making to be done. Our system operates in the same way. As Pulse Chain falls from the stable coin, there becomes arbitrage opportunity between the two, and that creates value for our system, making it to where some people, not all, like you said, most people will leave, will still be getting paid throughout the bear market in a fully deflationary token, which gives them the reason to stay within the system. Not all will stay, but some will. And again, these aren't full fixes to a downtrend in the market, but they are hedges against the rest of the market, and that's more than any other token has ever tried to accomplish, in my opinion.
hedging is going to be the only answer. That's it.
That's all we can do.
That's all it is hedging.
And that's
but there will be I'm gonna tell you one thing, there will be a use case. We'll know, and this is just all it is just an addition to the use case. As crypto gets more what's the best way to say it? As crypto gets more adopted, the answers is going to come in the future and somebody is going to win. The question is, at what percentage does that make it matter where the human interaction doesn't matter as much. That is going to be the key,
this
in
is
my
the
opinion.
thing about this ecosystem, B Roots, is in the same way Coinbase makes money. Coinbase doesn't actually make a lot. Like, it does make money off of the assets that it owns going up in price, but a lot of the money that it makes is off the volatility of the market, of going it up or down, because it's charging a fee to every market maker and every user that reacts off of that volatility. Our system operates in the same manner. So even if the market goes down, yes, that creates red on our chart, and yes, some people will exit, but the system is still gaining value and giving that value back to the debt address, which is an investor that never sells, and to the believers of the ecosystem that do ride that wave of it going up and down. And then the next cycle, they have more of the supply in their hands and less in the hands of people who do sell. And again, that's not the complete solution. That doesn't mean that we're not going to go down in the bear market. That just means we're one of the only protocols that exists that actually has found a legitimate way to hedge ourselves against it.
Correct. And my only argument from the beginning has always been any type of liquidity pairing concept is slightly flawed only because it doesn't combat sell pressure. At the end of the day, you have to have more buys than sells for the price to go up. And if there are more sells than buys, the price is going to go down. You can combat that and hedge against that over time. I think the true use case study for pTGC is at what percentage does it really kick in to where the true believers who believe in the ecosystem continues buying versus selling, so the price eliminates the amount of downside pressure. That's only going to come from what we find out through multiple cycles as it burns and makes money against its own protocol. So it's a very good concept.
And we have a couple people. We have people in the community too where this is starting to happen too, where they're starting to lock out years with the yield because it's basically free money, right? And so you can see a large percentage of locks going out, kind of like what Hex did, right? So it's interesting because the system does have things built into it, like the options for that, like the locks out up to 10 years and stuff like that. So it's going to be fun to see it. And I hope this conversation is indicative of the fact that, I mean, nobody's more bullish than B Roots on pTGC.
I'm just man. I can see people look at it either as a negative or positive, and you guys don't realize that I'm not being negative against it. I think what the idea is how I look at it is this is a concept where people are going to believe in it and go with it. And I just want to let people know that, hey, during a bear market, it's a concept. So we'll see what's going to come of it. But at the end of the day, it's narrative marketing. It's no different than I preach on meme coins. It's narrative, it's marketing, it's tokenomics. That's what makes price go up. Point blank. Well, that creates the more buys than sells, and that makes price go up. So the idea of what will happen during the bear market, it doesn't matter because there's going to come a point in time where the machine kicks in and you're going to say, well, the bottom is in. And once people recognize that the bottom is in, and then the price is going to go up because you're going to have the same people speculating on what the next top will be for that coin. And that's how you have a multiple cycle coin. We've experienced that with Bitcoin. We've experienced it with Ethereum. We've hopingly experienced it with Hex. But, that's what happens when you see multiple coins. So in the end, to sum it up, because I don't want to spend all day on this, to sum it up for me, it's going to be looking at what point do the top 50, 100, 200 holders, whatever that number is, because we don't know the number is, are saying, I'm not selling this coin, or I'm only selling this portion of coin, or I'm only going to make money off the yield of this coin. That combined with the machine doing what it's doing will create higher lows and higher highs over long periods of time. Not 1 week, not 1 year. That's when you look at Bitcoin and you say, okay, this thing has been in a super cycle for 11 years. Even though people didn't realize it was in a super cycle from year 1 to let's say 9. So we just created, I didn't create. You guys created a protocol that can shorten that from 11 years to maybe 8 years or maybe 6 years, because it's still going to do its 90 to 95% bottoms. But when does that shorten that term to where, hey, pulse chain or pTGC is in its prime, and like you're saying, maybe the answer is pTGC goes more towards USDC and USDT, as you're saying, over the first cycle. So you take advantage of the pulse chain tags, but after that, hey, year 4, year 5, wherever the numbers add up to, we're only doing USDC to USDT because now we got our growth and now it doesn't matter and we are on our own base and we're going to do our own thing. It's a good use case. I'm not going against that at all because it's very valid. But we're going to figure out what that number is, what percentage is, and what year is where it really kicks in, where it actually matters to go away from pulse chain index. It means, hey, only go to USDC, USDT. I don't hate it. I actually like it. I just realized it is slightly flawed.
Yeah, well, I wasn't saying either only USDC or USDT or whatever the stable coin is over here. Like, obviously, we're hoping for PDI, right? Like, we have a big pairing with it already. So if we can ride PDI up 250x from here and it stabilizes at the top, like some people are speculating, that's awesome for us. Because now we just got all the X's and then we got the stabilization near the top of the market. So we don't get the drawdown of the whole entire market. This goes back to a hedge against it, but not a solution. Yeah. But at the bottom, again, the machine is still working. So when we're close to the bear market in the next cycle, it wouldn't make sense for us to keep pairing with stable coins, right, B-Roots? We would then want to pair with the assets that we believe are going to go up again for a cycle 2, if that's Pulse Chain, if that's Hex going on a third, if that's Pulse X. We don't know, obviously how the outcome is going to be. We'll have a better idea when we're actually living in it, 4 years from now, 3.5 years from now. But we're going to take advantage of that same situation again that we're counting on taking advantage of right now. Like, I don't know what you believe Pulse Chain will do this bull market. Let's just say for conversation purposes, that's 100x. Well, as long as we keep a ratio with Pulse Chain 1-to-1, I think we're going to outperform Pulse Chain. Let's say we only outperform it by a 4x. Well, that would be a 400x for our ecosystem, and our liquidity pools would roughly 200x. So then if you times a $3 million liquidity pool with pTGC by 200x, that would be a $600 million liquidity pool that we are actually earning value off of. Every single transaction, fixing the prices the same way Coinbase makes money, and Coinbase in a bear market doesn't go bankrupt. They're still making money. And obviously this isn't a solution to the downtrend. I 100% agree with you. There's going to be a downtrend. I'm just saying that the model of this ecosystem, in my opinion, has hedged against it in every way imaginable that 99.9% of other tokens haven't even came close to even theorizing, let alone acting on. And that's what kind of sets us apart from the general token.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, come bull market. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. What's our market cap to Pulse Chain right now? Like, was it 1 to 100 maybe?
What do you mean?
Like, how many X's to get to Pulse Chain market cap? Let's just say. Like, what's Pulse Chain's market cap? What's Pulse Chain's market cap? What's pTGC's market cap?
pTGC is like 44. I do not know Pulse Chains at all.
If you exclude the OA, if you exclude
Yeah,
the OA,
I mean,
it's
yeah, you can-
775 million.
It's about a 10.5x
75 million divided by 44.
for pTGC to be equal to pulse chain.
17. No. 775 million, you said?
775 million divided by 45 million, 44 million.
Okay, so it's 1 to 17. So if pTGC to 17x, it would be 775 million. Okay, so what I would say, really, it's only 17 to 1. That's kind of surprising. What is it with the OA? What is it with the OA?
Oh God, that's let's see what it is.
It's still not even that crazy.
Billion,
That's what I'm saying.
6.6 billion. This is according to GoPulse.
Yeah,
right on the front of the website.
We're just giving numbers enough. So it's 150 to 1. That sounds more like it. Okay. I would think that that's I'm gonna have to think more before I just spoil out words.
You can always save it for the next one.
Yeah, I know. I gotta ponder on this a little more. I do think the idea of stable coins more than pulse chain hex, blah blah blah. Because if they don't have the tokenomics that pTGC has, in my opinion, they would actually be bringing pTGC down. If you are pro liquidity, you can be all about pulse chain all you want, but then there's going to come a point in time that pulse chain doesn't have the liquidity or the adoption curve or everything that pTGC does. Then it would actually be bringing it down.
Well,
now, let me speak about this. This is not me saying this year. I'm talking years and years and years out to where you're just well, how do we grow? How do we grow if these guys are on the same page as we are as far as tokenomics go? So that's when the USDC, USDT, or whatever freaking government stablecoin comes out that has to be paired to it. Makes a big difference. Now we're talking, like as I said, we're talking way in the future, by the way, people. So don't be like, oh, Beavers is bearish because this year he said blah, 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 blah.
Well, no, it's not about that. I mean, this concept applies to every damn thing that exists in crypto. This isn't just a pTGC conversation. This is an educational conversation.
Yeah, at this point, we're nowhere debating about flawed versus not flawed. We're debating about at what point do you say, hey, we need to get away from pulse chain and hex and be all about pulse chain and hex and go do our own thing and grow bigger than them.
Yeah, I'll point out one thing that I've thought about too is as we keep going up, like obviously pulse chain and hex can drag us up because we believe they're close to a bottom and they have plenty of X's to go. But a theory that's been produced is that liquidity is going to get removed from these assets on the way up to make them easier to pump. Well, what people haven't really put together yet is none of the liquidity of pTGC and UFO are going to get removed, and they're forced to drag our entire liquidity web up with it. So even if they're shrinking their liquidity web to make it easier to pump, ours is not going to shrink, and they're forcibly having to push our liquidity up in price with it to where the liquidities between the two will start getting closer and closer and closer together. And as these liquidities get closer together, the blockchain itself or the DEX itself is going to forcibly have to use our liquidity pairs for more of the volume because we'll be more of the percentage of the DEX itself. And as we take over more of the percentage of the DEX itself, we're going to absorb more of the volume of the DEX, which then in turn just goes back to we make more value because everything that runs through one of our pairs is forced to pay our system.
Which cycle do you see pTGC surpassing hex? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
In terms of what, like market cap?
In terms of market cap and adoption, because based off of tokenomics, it can easily be done. If I had to put you in a spot right now and say, at what cycle do you think that actually happens? It won't be the first cycle. And let's just say we have multiple cycles to go in the future, which truly I do believe that's very limited, and I'm not a full believer in that. But if we're going to be hypothetical and talk moon math and go this and that, I know it's not going against Hex, but just on tokenomics alone, if you were not in crypto and you gave me the tokenomics of Hex, you gave me the tokenomics of pTGC, you had an adoption curve growing, you're saying you're here and you're here, based off of tokenomics, if everything is bullish for both coins, at what point would you say it would overtake Hex?
And right now,
I definitely could not answer that question. But what I will say is I look at everything we're connected to as being on the same team. And when you're on the same team with someone, yes, you're competitive with your teammates. Like you want to do more, you want to shoot more goals than your person on your team, right? You want to be the MVP. But even if the person on your team is shooting goals, that puts less of the weight on you. So actually people don't realize I want Hex to be more successful to pTGC because Hex has to pump pTGC then. Hex has to pump UFO then. The more X's Hex does, Pulse Chain does, Pulse X does, the more X's pTGC and UFO do, and the more liquidity pTGC and UFO, and less of the X hurdle is on my back. So if we're on a team together, if I can count on all these guys shooting as many baskets or scores as possible, that's less I need to make. But then everything I make on top of that is an addition. And that's where that X multiplier comes in. So I actually don't hope that we outperform it. Do I think our mechanics have the abilities to? Yes, I do think they have the abilities to. But I actually hope Hex performs really, really, really well. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is I'm banking on the RH ecosystem performing amazingly because every X that Pulse Chain does or Hex does, they're forced to bring us up the same amount of X's. And then anything we do on top of those due to our deflationary metrics, our value, liquidity web, utility that we've built is an addition for our specific ecosystem. So specific holders of our token get to multiply our X's by whatever X's that the RH ecosystem, like Maxis, can push their ecosystem. We automatically get that. I want them to win hard because the harder they win, the harder our ecosystem wins because we're a sub-ecosystem of that. We're all a team.
So I'll give an example. And the more thing that we, and I know I probably should have thought twice. I'll ask you that question. There's some of the questions you shouldn't be answering anyway. But right now, Hex is Charles Oakley. If you know anything about basketball, Hex was Charles Oakley. Charles Oakley was the leader of the Chicago Bulls back in 1985. It's okay for Michael Jordan to be pTGC.
I was about to say, how old do you think I am? How old do you think I am? I know who Michael Jordan is.
I'm giving you some history. Charles Oakley was still the man. But guess what? Michael Jordan took over and said, you just support me now. So I want to end it like that.
Right now, market cap, excluding OA for Hex, is 1.25 billion. Market cap for pTGC is 45 million. That's a 27.77 to 1 ratio. So it would need to 27.77x against Hex to attain its market cap currently.
See, that doesn't even make sense because that would say Hex has a bigger market cap than Pulse Chain. You see what I mean? So we get when you're talking ratios, you have to be on the same. Something seems off there, or unless it is, like it might be, but something's off.
Yeah, Hex does have a bigger market cap than Pulse Chain.
You know what I mean? Like
it does.
Did we just find something out there? You're saying including the OA.
It's a $1.25 billion market cap.
Yeah, I could be wrong here, Amanda. You're obviously pretty knowledgeable about Hex. Hex has a way bigger OA than Pulse Chain, right? like as far as supply goes?
I could not I could not knowledgeably
So
answer that one.
I think you would have to look at the excluded market, the OAs excluded from both of those market caps to, in my opinion, get a real evaluation of it. I don't think
he did exclude that. That's what I'm saying. That was the excluded market cap, right?
Yeah, that's the excluded. So when you exclude it, it's 1.25 billion. When you don't exclude it, it's an 8.65. It's an 8.6 billion with a total supply of 658 billion in supply. When you exclude it, it's a 1.25 billion with 95 billion in supply.
And that's including the stakes, or that's excluding the stakes? Well, that's changing. That's changing every day then, right? Like, you know what I mean? So like,
we're going into the woods. And
I know.
like
that's why it sounds very
branches.
confusing right now. Like my mind's going all over with this hex to pulse chain market cap.
Hey, can I jump in real quick?
Because you're basically saying that, hey, just exclude the OA. Hex has a bigger market cap than pulse chain.
Let me go look on CoinGecko as well.
And King David is raising his hand to speak.
King, yeah, man. King, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, good morning, guys. Can you all hear me? I don't think Biru can hear me. Biru, can you hear me?
B, can you hear King?
No.
Okay. You want me to drop back and drop back in?
Yeah, drop
out,
down, Kate,
come back
and
in.
then come back. I see you still. Just raise your hand. Yeah, real quick, while he's coming back. Since I don't know this player from way before I was born, B-Roots, did Michael Jordan and this guy play together at one point, or were they part of different generations?
I wasn't born either, but well, actually, I was just being born. But when Michael Jordan got drafted, Charles Oakley is a pretty, I would say he's one of the best in the NBA. Not best, but really, really, really known of anyone who's in the basketball history. And then Michael Jordan, they still weren't that great, but Michael Jordan came out and ended up winning championships and being the guy.
Yeah. So my idea of it is if you take these star athletes and put them all on the same team, that team becomes a force that cannot be beat, right? What they usually try to do is they try to divide these top players and top athletes onto different teams. So then, there's always constant competition. But the idea is if we can combine what I believe an awesome product with other awesome products, RH's ecosystem, and put ourselves all on the same team, we become a group of protocols that are really unbeatable as far as blockchain goes. And that's, obviously my goal, and us all working together as a team, just taking over. Go ahead, King.
All right, good morning, guys. Can you hear me now, Biru?
Yes, I can. You're still as a listener, but I can hear you.
Okay. So I think me and Biru talked about this, or we had an argument about this a long time ago before I became even a founder. And I would say he's absolutely right. Every token in cryptocurrency as a whole, the rise and fall of every token depends on the market conditions, the buy and sell, period. Even the liquidity pairing is still part of buy and sell. Obviously, if you pay to pulse chain right now, or pay to Atropa, and Atropa's buy and sell falls, the sales outweighs the buy, and the token falls, is going to affect the token too. So liquidity pairing is just like an automatic buy and sell. So what can you really do to combat that? Everybody here will agree that pTGC has done outstanding job in combating that, the sell pressure, through being a deflationary token, the buy and burn, adding to the liquidity which each buy and sell. What else? But the only thing I'll probably say they have to probably do in the future, it's just an advice, in my opinion. I'm not an expert, obviously. Maybe I would have used something better. I think the only thing they can do in the future is either PDI becomes stabilized at $1, which will make pTGC like golden, like diamond, like the best, or they have to add stable coin in the future in order to stabilize the protocol. I know the LP bond is a great great concept, but it still has its own flaws too. Your ability to control and manipulate the market too, or manipulate your price, really, because that's what people do when you do the liquidity play. Because at the end of the day, something that is bound, you can't really control it. So we have to find a way to mitigate that too. So everything you guys have said is right. I don't think Beirut is saying. I think he is more just trying to say more, educate people on why pTGC is doing what it's doing today, and why pTGC is one of the best. To me, it's one of the best token pulse chain. And another thing too, we should refrain from comparing anything which has core tokens with, because if you look at Reed's law states that every other token in a network is a sub-community, and every other token that is paired to that token that is sub-community is a sub-community. So the bigger the sub-community, the bigger the whole network. I know it has to do with social networks mostly, but you can apply it to cryptocurrency. So we should refrain from comparing any token that is a sub-community to the pulse chain network, because we all should pray and hope and believe, manifest, whatever you want to do, that which has core tokens makes it they go ballistic. It's going to boil down to every other token under the ecosystem. And the tokens that have the best concepts, that has the best tokenomics, as you want to call it, will outperform every other thing. Probably will even outperform the main which are hardcore tokens, because of the way they're structured, But at the end of the day, the catalyst has to be Pulse Chain, Pulse X, Hex, or wherever you guys have used to fill up your liquidity. And another thing too, I will say this: quit talking about market cap. It's vanity. It has no bearing in crypto. I know everybody believes in market cap and blah blah blah. It has no bearing at all. It has zero bearing. What really has bearing on a token is the liquidity. That's their every other thing. Market cap is vanity. It's just, I don't know why they came up with that calculation. It works for people for adoption and other stuff. That's why we're still measuring, and that's why we're still talking about it. And I hope I made some sense this morning. Good morning, guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming up. Yeah, I think none of us disagree with you that market cap is something that can be completely manipulated. It's just supply, circulating supply multiplied times price. You can 100% manipulate that on any launch, which makes the number pretty much irrelevant. I 100% agree with you there. But yeah, thanks for coming up. We 100% agree. That's kind of what we're talking about, that one of the most important things with any protocol is the liquidity, because if you have lack of liquidity, yeah, you can do a bunch of X's, but usually it's just one person making those gains with a net loss for the 99 other people, right? So thank you for pointing
I think the last piece.
James. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, man.
No, B, go ahead, man.
I was going to say, locking in a stable coin that could potentially go up and stabilize itself. 100% pure speculation, by the way, but it's being speculated to the upside regardless. Can you still make money for the protocol off of a stable coin?
Absolutely.
So why wouldn't that be the number one priority in general at a later date? Just in general, if you can make money off of stablecoin and you still have millions, hundreds of millions of dollars locked in other protocols that goes up in value, why wouldn't you stabilize that at some point?
We technically make more money with stable coins than connecting with just assets that are connected together. The reason we don't pair with them right now is because they would decrease our Hart's Law effect, because they would actually be an anchor to our rising ship. But 100%, once we're at the top, we should be pairing with stablecoins, especially if PDI runs up at 250x and stabilizes up there, because then what will happen is when the market shifts down, the LP pools that are connected to the market will fall down, but the part of our token that's connected to the stablecoin would remain stagnant. And then what that would create is an arbitrage opportunity between the two, which is our main utility. But with our main utility, most of the time, like right now, the market moves together, right? So the arbitrage opportunity actually doesn't come up as often as people would think, because when Pulse moves up 5%, Hex moves up 8%. So there was really only a 3% difference there. But if you had a large pairing with a stable coin, that stable coin pair would have moved up or down 0%. So when we do pair with the stable coin, it's actually going to make our utility even stronger. It's not only hedging ourselves against the downtrend of the market, but it's activating our mechanic to a whole nother level that we haven't even yet tapped into yet. And 100%, if PDI pegs to $1 right now, UFO has $1 million of liquidity with PDI. If that 250x's, that's $250 million of liquidity with a stable coin that's fully decentralized on Pulse Chain. Like,
and
if
41 million
actually,
in pTGC.
Yeah, if PDI legitimately is what people are still speculating it to be, pTGC becomes a monster that's freaking scary. With no pairing to any stable coins in the future. We already have it. We just need to run it up to 250x and then stabilize at the top. Like, just that metric alone makes our protocol a freaking monster if the narrative of PDI is real. If not, if it isn't, and we just get gains from it, well, we have a DAO that will build up our liquidity with stable coins at the top and win either way. That's what I love about pTGC is we have so many different avenues to win, and then we can constantly kind of decide what's the best path when we hit those forks in the road. Like, it's not like this is the path we're going and there's no other route. It's, hey, we hit a fork in the road. Which one's better today? Hey, we hit a fork in the road. Which one's better 6 months from now? Because, yeah, if the PDI narrative comes true, you know, not only is that the stable coin we're probably going to pair with, we already have $1 million tied with it with just UFO. That'd be $250 million in liquidity. I don't know how much liquidity ETH has with USDC right now, but and maybe someone behind a computer could look that up, or USDT or whatever. But at that point, our protocol would be giving ETH a run for its money as far as stablecoin liquidity pairings.
Hey, can
like,
I add?
Talk about a transfer of wealth to the Pulse Chain community. Go ahead.
If all the speculation right now we're talking about goes right, pTGC should be a case study in the whole crypto ecosystem. You trust me on that? If PDI goes to $1, forget, you know. I use the same model, but there are some things that I took out of my ecosystem that I can't equate myself with pTGC. But I think, because I studied it, I love to sit down and look at why things are doing well. I think the ABCs of common sense was used throughout the protocol. The ABCs, there's not even XYZ, people talking about, oh, it's taking for 1,000 years and doing this and the inflation and the T. I'm not talking, I'm the X shares and P shares and this. It was just strictly ABC common sense, and which people tend to omit. And pTGC to me has done a great job in doing all those. But the only thing I see right now is the only way to stabilize the system in the future if PDI don't stabilize to $1. If, that's if. So it's still kind of a yes or no.
The power for me behind it is that in a bear market, when you start trending down, you start to get less buying, right? And no tokens that I know of out there have the mechanics that this specific protocol has. And so what you end up with is, like you said, when you have large pairings with stables, hypothetically in this environment, you're making less now because like if Hex goes up 8%. If Pulse goes up 5%, you got a 3% spread. But if you got stables, you're taking advantage of those 15% spreads, right? That the ARB bots have to rebalance. But on the way back down, when you're round tripping, you have a constant buying. You have a constant buyer the entire way down as well, which is not indicative of a normal situation. People are generally selling in a bear market. They're selling. But with this system, not only do you have all these kind of levers, but you have this constant buying and removing of supply, market buying and removing of supply. The system is not emotional. It doesn't care that it's a bear market. It only can do what the smart contracts are telling it to do, right? And that's what makes it unique and very powerful, and different than anything we've seen before.
Hey, just a disclaimer, guys. I'm not like heavily. I'm not even like anywhere a big holder or anything in pTGC. I'm just a regular guy. I'm speaking the truth.
Yeah, so good conversation. I think this kind of a conversation is more indicative of a higher grade of conversation where you can talk about the real things, right? There's no cookie cutter. There's no cookie coding stuff or anything like that. It's been great. It's, what is it, almost 12 o'clock here. Does anybody else have anything? If not, I think, Zen, it's probably time for you to bounce out, or are you still good?
I am trying to bounce out. Me and my wife are going to her grandpa's business because he's selling it this month, so he's technically retiring. So we're just kind of doing a kind of like a congratulations for working 60 years or whatever, and he's finally making that move. So yeah, if no one has any specific questions, I don't mind shutting it down. We need to be hitting the road.
Okay. If there's nobody else raising their hand or wants to come up, Prairie, is there anybody?
I don't see anyone. Let's be active on Twitter and in our marketing. Let's bear that in mind and keep pushing forward. We'll be on Spaces again Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome. Want to thank everybody for coming in.
Yeah, B-Roots, thanks for coming in. Mando, Banana, Coach, thanks for coming in. King, Romeo. There's a few other people that came up that I don't see anymore, but I just want to say thank you for coming up and, engaging in the conversation with us. I really appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you guys being in the community and, being on this journey together.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Good talk, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks,
B-Roots.
Thanks, B-Roots.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, cool. Well, 3-hour space today. It's better than being in space for 3 hours. Thank you for everybody that's here. And you all have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on Monday or perhaps next Saturday. Thanks, guys.